After not fighting, I believe, for over a whole year, Scott Quigg goes up against Jono Carroll, gets stopped, pulled out by his own corner, Joe Gallagher, in the 11th round. And straight away, he has decided that is it. He has officially retired now. Now, the biggest fight of Quigg's career in terms of prestige, importance, narrative going into it, I was there for his fight against Carl Frampton in February of 2016. And he lost that fight probably due to what Frampton said prior to the fight, due to his lack of intelligence, and with Frampton being the smarter fighter. Now, while that was true, Quigg has shown a different kind of intelligence in recognizing when to call it a day, which a lot of fighters do not know when to do. He has just reflected straight away, showing a lot of maturity post-fight as well, when usually you don't even want to think about the fight, you just want to go away, go back to your family, think about how you're going to process this. And straight away he just said, I'm not the same guy. This is to Quigg and Cassius, IFL TV. He recognised he's not the same guy. He said the guy 4 years ago would have beaten Carroll, and that he knows now. That is pretty much it. Of course, if you haven't fought for over a year anyway, then you're asking, well, what's going on with your career? Now, Quigg fought a hell of a fight that probably took, or rather I should say, put a lot of miles on his clock, which was the fight in 2018 against featherweight champ, WBO champ, Oscar Valdez. It was very arguably fight of the year. It was a barn burner. They slugged it out. Quigg's face after this slugfest was a mess, really swollen. I think his nose got broke again. And he managed to break the jaw of Oscar Valdez, which is actually what he suffered in the 4th round of his fight with Frampton. Quigg was all heart in both of those fights. I think tactically he started too slow against Frampton before turning it up. Yeah, his game plan was poor for that fight at super bantamweight. But he really went for it. Again, in the States, he'd been training with Freddie Roach for a long time. Really went for it against Valdez, but came up short. But sometimes it's those losses that you can really remember somebody for, or where you just look, and even though they lost, when they're still standing there and willing to slug, something about that spirit just encapsulates boxing and goes beyond just being known as great or particular accolades. He had a couple more fights, massive time off, fights Carroll, it's just not there anymore, and he's basically gonna retire. Now, if you want to be harsh to Scott Quigg, you could say that he was a paper champion, that he won a vacant WBA belt, and that really Guillermo Rigondeaux, who had the WBA proper title, or whatever the hell it's called, he was the man at super bantamweight. But if we're to even things out here, you could say the same about Carl Frampton, because neither of those guys wanted to fight Rigondeaux. They didn't feel it did good business, but they kind of knew they would very probably lose to El Jackal because he was just an absolute nightmare to face. Looking back on Scott Quigg's career, there were too many defences of that WBA title. He almost kind of fell victim to a little bit of what I thought even Ricky Hatton did. There was just too many defences back for Hatton of his WBU title before he started stepping up. And kind of true enough of Scott Quigg. It took too long for his fight against Frampton to materialise. We were talking about it for about 3 years, I think, before it actually happened. So he was wasting his career and just energy, I believe, at that point before getting the really meaningful fights. The victory against Kiko Martinez, blasting him out in a couple of rounds, that will probably be remembered as maybe his best win. But with Scott Quigg, his career, it's not going to be remembered about a career of greatness, of any particular wins. For me, when I think of Scott Quigg, and when I look back and probably watch that Valdez fight a couple more times, I'm going to look at him as another classic example of British bulldog grit in the ring.